to Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
Always be strong because you never know who you're inspiring.
And Dale Hummel.
Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, we are in 3 different time zones, and we're here. It worked.
By the hair of our chinny chin chin. But yes.
And we have a guest on top of all of that.
The 4th guest for the 4th week in a row. This is
I was not. I don't count.
Well, Dale, there's been a trending series, 4 parts, that would be the 4th week.
Right.
We're on the last one.
I was the person that did the goats.
Oh, well, yeah, but you have multiple personalities, so.
I'm not going to argue this. So I have been picturing sales.
The only reason that, okay, look, let's just be real honest. Yes, the guests that we had for the week that we did the goats backed out and we had to move goats up. You didn't want to pick a goat guest anyway. So it worked out for you.
And I did not feel comfortable doing it. So it just happened for a reason. All good. So
okay. I have one current event that I would like to bring up. I have one that before I forget. So I've been in Idaho at the Gym Summer Classic for 4 days. And if any of y'all saw my Snapchats, literally the greatest people watching of all time in downtown Boise, Idaho. But the show, it's all run by kids. They did a great job. But the way they did the hog show, and everybody is going to not like this, but what they did is they divided the ring in half. And I bounced back and forth. There was a gate in the middle, and we'd be on one side, judge class, be on the other side. It was the most amazing hog judging experience ever because it just went like clockwork. I mean, it was just boom. So I want to give a shout out to the Gym Summer Classic, and I have never got to do that before that way. I think it should be implemented in all hog shows everywhere. It was great.
You
amazing.
Just need to put in an extra ring.
Yes.
No big deal. Very simple.
It was beyond gymtastic. It was
and Ryan and I have talked about this yesterday, I think, or whenever it happened. And I remember this. I haven't seen this for a long time, but I do remember some county shows. Maybe it was Indiana. I'm not sure where long ago that would do that, or it was very common. And it certainly makes the show go quicker.
Oh, and I said at the end, you guys in the back probably absolutely hated this, and about half of them shook their heads or whatever. But for someone like me who loves to roll and just, go, it was truly, truly amazing that you could just get done, walk through this gate, and they were ready. Next class coming at you. So again, shout out to these people.
Excellent. My week has consisted of picturing sale goats early in the week, off to Oregon to officiate a wedding.
Yes, let's talk about, I want everyone to know that Dale is now in the business of being a wedding officiant. He's licensed. He loves it. His wife writes the passage. Did you quote scripture or Bible verses or anything like that?
Something would have came down from the heavens and
see, there you go. So and he absolutely worships doing this. So y'all all flood his Facebook messages, his Hummel Livestock email with requests for Dale Hummel to marry you because he literally had an out-of-body experience, he told me.
I am going to clarify just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I did do one earlier for a former student.
This is your second one. You're a professional now.
And the first one, I wrote everything, not my wife. It was very short and very to the point.
30 seconds.
One of my
You're
wife's
married.
good. It was about 4 minutes. But anyway, this time was for my wife's good friend. I'm very happy to do it. My problem.
No, you weren't. Don't lie.
I want
you
to be able
bitched
to do it.
For a week.
I can't do a good enough job at it. I'm not good in that situation at all. And I survived it. It was fine. But yeah, for the future, I am not a person that needs to be doing those things. I'm not.
He's putting together a website.
Now, Ryan,
Weddings by Dale.
I am confident that you would do an amazing job at it. Amazing.
And I do think that I would be absolutely amazing at it. I do not believe in marriage, so therefore I will not do it.
Got it. And you know what's funny? And this has nothing. It's fine.
Whole life or no life. There you go.
Okay. This ordained thing, I went online. It probably cost $10 a year ago or whenever I did it.
I did it about 7 years ago, and it cost me like $8.
So what I think, Ryan, is
We got drunk in a hotel room at a jackpot show, and I got ordained.
How can some company out there, internet company, ordain you? I don't think you have to be ordained. I think anybody can do it. I don't know how you can say this company has the authority to ordain you. That just
I don't either, but it happens because
I think it's the best scam in the world. You and I need to come up with a website. And
well, actually, organized religion is the best scam in the world, but this is close.
Yes,
but
don't you think you don't beyond the ring ordain shit? We can get $10 from anybody.
One of my other there's only about 5 people that I talk to every single day of my life, and one of the other ones is ordained and has done 2 weddings too. So I don't know what the hell is up, but she loves to do it.
I'm honored to be asked, and I'd love to do it for people. I'm just not very good at it. That's all there is to it. Period.
So again, real current events. The only thing that I really know is Trump has been indicted by the Department of Justice for the classified documents and all the things, 37 counts. And I'm just going to be super honest. I haven't addressed this on social media or here, and I'm going to address it here. And it's not that I'm not going to address it. I just have not had enough time to go through, listen, read, and form my own opinion. From the little that I have got to go through and decipher, and what was all said before, of the 4 cases, the one in Georgia, the January 6th, the bullshit in New York, this is the one that really only has any legs whatsoever at all. And so I feel bad that I have not done my duty in actually researching it, listening to the different opinions and all this other stuff. I just have not had time this week. But from the little that I can tell, it has not going to affect anything, even if he gets proven guilty or anything like that. And I will say that there are several Democrats that have spoken out that they think this is a bad idea, not because they feel like he may not have done something wrong, but they think that the sitting administration's Department of Justice indicting and trying his chief political rival and the obvious and going away frontrunner from the opposing political party is not a good look.
Agreed. I think it will strengthen his base and get them out to vote. Not that they weren't going to go anyway, but I think on his base and the Republican side, it's going to get more out there to vote. But I think there's a chance if convicted and things look serious, I think it will sway some of the independents.
So, again, I wish that I had more to tell you people about what the indictments are, what my personal opinion was, all that. I don't. And again, I know this is freaking Gay Pride Month and all this other stuff, and I hate to bringing up the Bud Light issue, but so most people in the livestock show world think Garth Brooks is a god. I do not. I love his. I love his music.
And do you know him personally?
I have met him actually.
So you did not like him?
No. I mean, he was. I mean, it was very brief, but I met him. He's fine. I do not like his politics whatsoever at all. And he played for Hillary Clinton at a campaign event. All this other
enough said for me. I'm out.
Lots of things. And so he has now come out and he's got a bar or something, and he has made this big political statement. that Bud Light is going to be sold and distributed in his bar and all this other shit. And I'm just like, dude, just whatever. So
did I tell you that I don't like him either?
All you diehard Garth fans, I just want you to know you need to do a little research on your man.
No good. Bad news. Get away.
Oh, and do you also know that the head chief of CNN's gone? Bye.
I did hear something about that, but I am oblivious to anything that's going on. So it just is what it is. This week I've got nothing. I could rant about China or UFOs, but we'll save that.
There is no UFO nonsense.
There's more evidence that's out. It's real, pal. And you're going to apologize when one comes down.
I have never said that UFOs aren't real. We go over this every damn week. What evidence are you talking about now?
There was and this was before this week, that there's a whistleblower that came out. My issue
that was like a month ago.
No, it was a week ago. My issue is I watched the interview. Even though he has very strong credentials.
Your son Chase does not believe he did not think he was a credible witness.
I don't believe. I have to agree with Chase. This one's maybe on paper he looks good. Visiting with the reporter, I'm a little suspicious. A little. I still hope that he's right or telling the truth. I can't completely jump on board yet. And Chase says there's no chance. Zero on that one.
Only other thing that I have in current events is I do find it a huge coincidence that the Biden administration's Department of Justice announced the Trump indictment on the same day that the documents got released from the testimony of an FBI witness from June of 2020. We're in June of 2023. June of 2020.
That long.
Yeah, sitting on that long. About Dale's best friend, Joe Biden, getting a $5 million payment from Burisma while Hunter was sitting on the board of the company and while he was vice president. I know that just happened all in the same day by complete accident and coincidence, but there you go.
No, it wasn't coincidence.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just by accident. The FBI has just been sitting on it and doing nothing with it.
3 years.
It's
3
all
years.
Crap. Okay, with that being said, do you have any positive BTRJLA news?
Yes, I do. First off, I did put a top 10 list on social media last week, and that was a big hit, so we'll continue that. I am going to give the top 10 junior hog exhibitors in the BTRJLA as of this week, and we have siblings in the top. Roxanne Coates from Arizona is first, and Zane Coates from Arizona, of course, is second. Third is Amanda Robles of California. Armando Robles of California. Fourth is Avery Layton from Oregon. Fifth, Easton Zerbach of Oregon. Next is Weston Knowles of Arizona, followed by Santos. I'm going to mess up your name, Santos. I'm sorry. Olivares of Arizona. Cash Crawford of Arizona. Nola. I am not going to get this last name right either. Nola Hoisington.
Just spell it.
Hoisington. Hoisington of Arizona. I do know Tally West of Texas in 10th, and I got that name right. The junior hog is all Arizona, pretty much. I mean, like couple Oregon, one California, one Texas, but it is all Arizona. So that is the top 10 junior hogs. I am going to give a shout out to the sponsor. But speaking of sponsorship, Arizona is Region 1. There are more kids from Arizona getting awards this year than anyone else. I don't have any Arizona regional sponsors. Like, people in Arizona, your kids are benefiting. We need 2 more species sponsors for Region 1, which is the region Arizona is in. y'all need to step up to the plate. Somebody does. But so we need a couple more region sponsors in every region. Please, if you're interested, contact me. I will give you the perks, the benefits, all those things. I do want to give a shout out to 3 new sponsors that I don't have all their information yet. They are getting it to me. But we had an anonymous show family become a sponsor for Region 2 species. They want to remain anonymous, but you know who you are, and I know you're listening, and I want to thank you for your support. I want to say thank you to Blue Team Weathers. They are going to be a national top 10 jacket sponsor. I just don't have all their information yet. And I want to thank Chad Walker Livestock. He is the Region 3 lamb sponsor. And again, we will have more information on them coming, but I appreciate all of them. So since we're not really ready for them yet, because I don't have their information on what they want on the podcast, I want to give a shout out to one of our corporate sponsors for the past 2 years and one of Dale's favorite products, Showcoat. They are a corporate sponsor and have been for the last 2 years of the BTRJLA. Champion approved for years, Showcoat manufactures the best award-winning livestock grooming products for show cattle, goats, horses, sheep, and swine. No matter where you are in the country, no matter what species you have in the barn, if you're looking for the winning edge, the advanced shag strategy developed by Showcoat Solutions will change your hair growing routine overnight. They have step-by-step instructions partnered with free product application videos and game-changing customer service. So again, we really, really appreciate Showcoat Solutions for their investment in the youth of the livestock community and their sponsorship of the BTRJLA for the past 2 years. Please support Showcoat. Go to showcoat.com.
Big thank you to Blue Team Weathers, Chad Walker, and Showcoat. With that said, Showfresh H2O is committed to the youth in the stock show industry, and I would like to personally thank them for sponsoring this episode and every episode for a very long time now. Product availability at your local farm store, supply trailer, and swampfox.com. It is simple. For minimal cost, you can help ensure your stock will drink when hauling and showing. Give Showfresh H2O a try.
And I am going to say something.
Yes.
Today at the show, even though it will not be seen anywhere,
I have that picture.
If you put it on social media, I swear to God, I'll come to your house and blow up all your goats. I kind of put on a Showfresh H2O hat, and I pointed at the product.
Kind of. Because you held it by your head.
Yeah, that's about the best I could do. But anyway.
You're not a ball cap wearing kind of guy.
No,
Ever?
I'm not. But no, God, no.
Cowboy hat, maybe?
I did it for a very, very special kid. And so I did that because he wanted to send it Dale and so I did that. But I swear to God, if that comes out on social media, I will literally end people.
Oh my. Well, we appreciate Showfresh H2O. They've done a lot to keep this going and made it much easier for us to do this every single week.
Clifton likes them because he gets paid.
Yeah, it pretty much just we just need to have him send it directly to him, and then it doesn't bother me on taxes. But we're good. This week, Ryan, we're still trending. Trending. We have with us
Dale. You know because I am an honest person and you're not, because you're just not. But anyway, I want to give, and I said this from the very beginning, but I want to give the credit where the credit's due. You came up with this idea for this trending series. This was all you. I had nothing to do with it. And it literally has been the most popular thing that we have done in this podcast. So kudos to you, because I am a person that can give recognition when it's due, unlike you.
No, I don't think it's anything revolutionary. It's something we probably should have done earlier, but thank you for that. I am just excited about some of the guests that we've had on, and particularly excited about this one because this is another repeat guest. And people are going to think we have a very small wheelhouse, Ryan. That
we do.
We have a couple people that
we do
communicate.
We don't like a whole lot of people. I'm being real honest.
There is something to that. I'm
just saying, we really don't like a whole lot of people.
So we do reach out to those that we're familiar with. Let's say that. And today we have with us a cattle specialist, Mr. Blaine Rodgers. Blaine is a California native that grew tired of the California politics, so he packed up his bags and he was off to Savannah, Missouri with his wife, Melissa, daughters, Peyton and Reagan. Blaine is the owner of Rodgers Livestock. He raises and sells show cattle across the country. I think most of you in the cattle circles will be very familiar with Blaine. No introduction needed. He's also the founder of RL Genetics Bull Battery. Has a diverse set of club calf sires and Maine and Jew genetics. In his spare time, he serves as the national sales manager for Rural Supplements and Revival Show Feed. I have had the privilege of knowing Blaine for many years. I not only value his knowledge on the cattle side of things, but consider him one of the best multi-species feeders in the country. With that, we have Blaine with us tonight. An ever so popular trending series. This trending series will focus primarily on the steer ring. We'll maybe venture into cattle in general, but we're going to focus probably on steers. Blaine, welcome to Beyond the Ring for the second time.
Thanks, Dale. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, Ryan, do you want to start off or shall I?
No, you go right ahead.
Well, Blaine, you and I have, and not about this episode necessarily, have discussed some different things in the cattle industry and how it has maybe changed things over the years, and I think will continue to change some things to a certain degree. And I know we're in a trending series, and sometimes trends are put into place because certain judges want this or a certain breeder is going a certain direction. But I think there's something else that we can bring into play here that makes perfect sense and something that Blaine and I have discussed. But some of the things that we're doing within the industry because of technology has maybe taken us down a more narrow path and somewhat dictates the kind of animals that are showing up in the ring. Blaine, can you shed any light on this for us?
Sure, Dale. Yeah, I think you and I have discussed this a lot, and part of how it's evolved. In every situation, we're trying to constantly better ourselves, and I think part of how that happens, as we look at the junior livestock showing industry as a whole across species and especially cattle, I feel like the level of competition has elevated so high in the last 10 years that trying to figure out a way to separate yourself or create an animal or individual that can hit the ring and separate itself becomes more challenging all the time. And there's lots of reasons for that. On the cattle side, I really feel like a lot of that has to do with our advancement and how we've, used artificial insemination, which has been around obviously forever. And then the availability of embryo transfer and IVF here in the recent years. And I feel like, on the cattle side alone, uniquely compared to a lot of the other species, the generation interval is so much slower than what we can, make change in some of the other species that we've relied a lot heavier on, IVF and embryo transfer. And because of that, we've opened up the doors in so many positive ways to multiply the very best matings and really, take a set of cows or a set of donors that have created a unique individual and multiply that by so many more. And with that, obviously it has created a lot of opportunities for us, making a certain sex of that mating that we can multiply where, it might take 3 years to get another male out of the same mating or whatever it might be. Because of that, you're getting litters of the same quality genetics instead of an individual. And with that, we've created a lot better animals faster, and we've, replicated a lot more of them. With that, I feel like you and I have talked about some of the challenges that have come forward. And one of those that is really challenging is the fact that we have really limited our genetic pool as we've done this. Some of it intentionally by, utilizing the same sires over and over again because they've worked so well. But as you look across species, for example, in the Angus arena, the females are worth so much from a show animal aspect that, a lot of the best donors are getting flushed and, the pregnancies are sexed for females. And a lot of times we don't find that outlier male that comes along out of one of those really good donors that makes a huge impact going forward. So as we've done this, I feel like a lot of our genetic pool has gotten a lot smaller. There's a lot of good that's come out of it too, though, obviously, in terms of just creating some really unique individuals and being able to go back to those same matings and create those. So that's
Blaine,
one I think.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Angus world, and I think we can do that in several the cattle breeds on selecting for those females, making those breeding decisions with females in mind. On the clubby world, would it be the opposite, that we're using the male semen, and we don't find many of those clubby females then?
For sure, and I think that with that, we've used the same sires over and over again. So even as we try to find a new sire within that, we've got different shades of the same genetics that keep showing up, and challenging ourselves to create different opportunities, or the simple fact that these steers are worth so much money. What's the incentive to keep one intact and make that decision at an early age, to try to identify which one that is that needs to stay intact when their value as a steer, that you don't have to worry about, them going and freezing semen and all the different things that can come along with that, and the thrill of getting one out in the ring that can win. So, there's a lot of really neat things that have come along because of it, but there's some challenges as well. So
would you say, relative to the trending and moving forward, because we're reaching back and using those proven sires and proven females, and really that they have a dominant impact on the whole show arena, does that slow change down and continue to kind of replicate what we really have enjoyed the success of in the past?
For sure. And I think what we find is that when you get to those shows, go to a major steer show, whether it's American Royal or Denver or whatever you want to say, Fort Worth, and go watch those classes that are in what we consider the heat of, the right size and the, competitive breeds, whatever it might be. And you get into those couple classes, man, I wouldn't want to be a judge anymore in a lot of those situations. I mean, you can get into there. In particular, as an example, last year at Kansas City, there was a certain class in there, and I counted about 12 of them that were all people that show up expecting to win a show and had some of the highest caliber steers that you'll see. And there's just not a lot of, you don't see ones that jump out and just daylight everything near as often anymore, because the depth of quality is so much deeper. And there's just, because they're all out of the same sires, there's a lot of them that look very similar too. They've got the same strengths. They've got the same areas that you might like to change on them. And so it really makes it hard to find one that's completely unique from the rest of the pack.
Okay. So on that note, I have questions. And I'm not disagreeing with anything that has been said here. I agree with a lot of it. But since they are so good, and they are genetically, a lot of them have a lot of similarities, whether it's on the, the sires, maybe on the cow side or the bull side, all these things. But there's a lot. It's a little bit incestual in some ways. What I want to know from you, Blaine, because not only do you breed them, you also buy and resell them, and then you've got girls that go out and show at the highest level there are. So you literally go at it in every way that you can on this steer deal. What do you think, if you could give me 3 things right now this year that you think would separate from that first and second to that third to fifth? What do you think those are?
Probably one of the first things that I would tell you is presence. An animal that has really unique presence within the ring automatically gets you. I mean, as you walk in that ring when they're that good, you've got to make an instant impact on them, because as they all get lined up and they're all parked, the ability to get these things presented, shown, fit, brought out to the ring on a high level is so good that you've got to find a way to differentiate yourself as you hit the ring to make an instant impact with that judge, in my opinion. And presence is something that's really hard to define. I mean, certain animals have it and some don't. And the ones that have it, are few and far between, that have that arrogance and presence about them that just command your attention right away when they hit the ring. And so with that, I would also say that, on a steer show, the majority of the time, or most all of the time, the final decision made on how to sort a class is from the side profile. So if an animal has a distinct advantage in terms of presence and look from the side, and they're obviously, we've gotten all these animals where they're pretty stout. I mean, at some point, that area or category, I feel like, can get you the little extra right there at the end when they're making that decision. That would probably be my first and foremost. Secondly, probably structure, because when they're good everywhere else, that's the one area that people like to, obviously that separates them. And structure is hard to define. Lots of people see it in different ways. So, that's something that you've got to really focus on, trying to be good there, because I feel like as we've made these animals so much better, that we become very critical of them. And, when we're selling them and trying to select which one we're going to show, we try to find the ones that have the big pieces, the crazy parts to them that can separate them from other animals. And I feel like a lot of times when you get them in the ring, we can single trait a small detail to select this one being better than that one. And sometimes you find that the complete ones that maybe aren't as out there in areas end up winning because we get hard on them in certain areas, or single trait a certain thing that we don't like. So I think structure is one of those areas that really has some subjectivity and can change how the outcome is. And then just presentation, the ones that are presented to the highest level.
And then and another thing that I wanted to ask you about, Blaine, and it's a trend. And so we're at this point especially in steers. And again, that's kind of what we're focusing on, because we're hoping that maybe we'll have another trend episode in a few weeks about more like the breeding cattle thing. But in the steers right now, like, we're kind of at, there's no weight that's too much. And I'm just being honest, it's a little weird for me, because it wasn't that long ago that couldn't be over 1,300, couldn't be over 1,350, all this other stuff. And now it's just kind of like, you know what? 1,525, it's fine. And so what is your take on that there? Where do you see that staying where it is, that weight really doesn't matter, and because we've made them so stout and so big and whatever, that it's just going to stay there? Or do you think that trend's going to go back, or where do you see that going? Because I think that's one of the most interesting things that has happened in the last couple of years, is that where there used to be hard and fast rules and lines about what most judges thought were acceptable on the top end weight of a market steer, that's kind of gone by the wayside.
Yeah, it really feels that way. And hey, I'm by no means an expert in the commercial industry, so I don't want to sit here and make big statements, but it looks to me like as the beef cattle industry has evolved, they're using cattle that are a lot bigger, harvesting cattle that are a lot bigger. And so it's kind of given us a platform to say in the show ring, if the commercial industry is allowing cattle to be heavier without penalizing them, then how can we get on a soapbox and say that they can't be such and such weight within the arena? But I think ultimately the elephant in the room is that with all show livestock, creating an animal that is proportional and moderate and boxy and still, brings all the traits to the table that we want, has created an environment where we've made these things a lot older when they show. And because of that, it's really, really hard to keep the better ones in check at a lighter weight, and to have the kind of maturity that it takes to make them as stout and powerful as they've got to be, yet still move good enough, and stay fresh enough in their look. It takes getting them to heavier weights and older age, animals to get that done in a competitive venue. So I think there's a lot of reasons probably why we've gotten to this point. And to answer your question, I don't really see it changing a whole lot. But then I'm sure there was a lot of people 50 years ago when the trend was what it was that never thought it was going to change either. I mean, I just feel like myself, though, we're probably the closest we've ever been in a lot of areas to making these animals look and be what we want them to be in both a commercial setting and a show ring setting outside of maybe their age.
I think that's dead on, Blaine, and Ryan can verify this, but each of the trending episodes that we've had so far, everybody's brought up maturity, just exactly like you have. And I like your thought, and I agree with your thought that right now we're probably making them about, I think, as good as we've ever made them and more of them. And we tend to, it's human nature to live in the moment. And I can assure you 20 years ago, it wouldn't matter what the species. If I was looking at one that wins a national show or at that level, I thought, wow, these are really good. Just like you mentioned 50 years ago, you said it probably wouldn't change. I agree that it probably will change, but in my heart, I think we're close to where we're going to stay, at least for a while. I don't see that going a long ways off of the base where it is right now. Weights, I don't know if they continue to go up or not. I think they have to stabilize or level off at some point. I wanted to circle back just a little bit on the question that Ryan asked on your three things that are going to make the biggest difference between first and second versus third and fourth and fifth, or whatever the numbers he used was. I like your comment, Blaine, so much about the side profile, because and Ryan can come in and talk about this a little more. That side profile, when you're picking the champion, that's that last thing going through that judge's mind. That's the last thing they look at. I'm not saying don't make them stout and all these things, but I think you're right. In general, we've made all the species stout enough. I think we're going to continue to let's give that real unique presence that could be different things for different people. I'm not saying it's all going to be exactly the same by any means. And I want to talk about, you mentioned structure. When you're out there, Blaine, looking at these baby calves or raising them for those really out there pieces, would you agree when we get those really out there pieces, it's even that much harder to put the soundness, the flexibility, the ease of movement in them, because we have to select a little harder for some of those other pieces?
Oh, without a doubt. And, the hardest thing is that you can have one at a young age that looks like they're going to be that way, read that way. I've always said that I think when I die, the one thing that's going to haunt me forever is a pastern that doesn't work right, because we've all been beat by those. And sometimes it's something that you can't control. It's you can have one that's extremely sound and show up to a show and they'll get up on their pastern. And I probably am hard on it when I judge, but I also get frustrated when people get hard on them and throw them away because they crack an ankle once when they walk around the ring. And it just, not to get off on a tangent, but I think that has been an easy way and not to throw anybody under the bus that judges, but that's the easiest way.
I'm feeling very attacked right now. I'm not going to lie.
I'm there with you. I don't like it. And it's very odd for me. I will be at a show.
Let him finish. I want to get the rest of my attack.
No, so, hey, I do the same thing. So I'm not throwing judges under the bus, but to me, the hind leg structure of cattle is very subjective in what people call sound and unsound. We might be getting off on a tangent. I apologize.
No, this is part of it.
Do it.
Animal has a big soft pastern and they're squishy footed. It seems like they get the hall pass they can be straight off their front end. Their hock can be straight, whatever. If they hit the ground with a big squishy pastern, they get the haul pass more than not. And, if an animal hits their pastern hard and gets up on it at one point in the ring, it can trump every other good thing that they have going for them. And it's one of the hardest things to manage there is right now, whether it's genetics or the way we're feeding them or the stress of hauling them or the fact that we've got 18 shots of heat wave in every single one of these at this point, and their minds are not all wired just the way they're supposed to be. There's so many things structure it can be your best friend when you've got the one that's got it. It can be your worst enemy when you've got one that doesn't cooperate with you on show day. So I guess that kind of is my answer.
I think one of the best things that Blaine just said there is, he talked about, and that was in his top 2 of what are the little fine points that kind of trend that separate out being in the top 2 or being third and lower at these big shows. And structure was one of them. But I think one of the best things he said was that structure is very different in the eyes of a lot of the people that judge out there. And I think he's dead on, because what I consider sound and what Dale considers sound, what Blaine considers sound, or somebody who's judging, all these state fairs are coming up, it's all different. And the levels of acceptability on what each judge will say, I can live with this, but I can't live with this. It's different. And it is, Blaine said that pastern is going to be the death of him, or that's what's going to haunt him when he dies. And so that is because of his own personal experiences, whether he is fed them, bred them, or got beat by one, etc. So that's where he's at. I can tell you from my personal experience, I think I am as critical on structure as anybody that I know. And I know exactly where my hierarchy of structure stuff is. I do not like one that pops their pastern. I like one less that is too weak in their pastern. But before either one of those, a straight shoulder and a straight knee is going to get at me and make me be more critical, far more than a pastern problem, whether it is popping or too weak. But if in the two of those, one that is that squishy pastern bullshit, that it is what it is. That is a fault more than it is something to condone, in my personal opinion. But I will be way harder on one that is too straight through their shoulder and knee than one that has a pastern issue. So I think Blaine's point that it is very different in terms of what all of us decide is acceptable, not acceptable, what we can live with, is a very good point.
I'm completely on board with that, and Blaine described it well, right? You described it well. We could just label this episode pasterns and squishy, stiff, bucked over. So real quick, I want to look at squishy. I can look at squishy pasterns. I can see the flexibility.
I hate that word. I hate that word. I hate that.
Then look at
other than check the boxes. Squishy pasterns is my least favorite term in the world.
Okay. Squishy pasterns, good flexibility, makes a move. I think from a negative standpoint, and Blaine alluded to this. Blaine, you're
Do you know I'm going to shut up. But I'm going to go off on this in a minute, but I'm going to let y'all finish.
Blaine, think back to some of the hogs when we make so many radical changes in them. They get too straight in their knee and straight in their hock. Oftentimes they come down on their pasterns to compensate because they can't move out of their front end. They can't move out of behind. And the only way they're going to move is to get softer pastern to try to compensate for that, which I think is a structural flaw for something up higher in the skeleton above the pastern. I think there are some flexible pastern ones that are on the borderline of what we call squishy pastern, that their whole body's that loose in their skeleton and flexible, and I'm okay with that. But more times than not, those ones that are really tough on their pasterns, and I guess I see it in cattle, but I just have it ingrained in my head, all of those really, really soft pastern hogs. that are so straight in their hock and so straight up front, but they can almost get around the ring because that pastern is just has to flex or they don't move at all. I don't see it as much in cattle, but are you on board with some of that?
I agree. And to be honest with you, I study a hind leg different. And I think a little bit of it changed when we really started playing in the hog world a little bit with my daughters. And I actually, a lot of people don't know this, but that's what I actually showed growing up. I didn't show near as many cattle. And to me, a hind leg that works the right way, their hock reaches out back behind their tail head and they can actually grab ground and reach back. And the reach in their hock is what correlates, and how their hock's built is what correlates how they sit down to the ground. And Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. When their hock is straight and they're soft in their pastern, they can appear like they're soft enough, but usually they can't reach back behind their tail head and really drive off their hind leg. Instead, they're just reaching forward, and all their movements from
just getting around, just barely.
Yep. And I don't know. It just, to me, I feel like that's something that we've really trended to, and it goes back to judging teams and everything. Like it, I mean, the easiest thing to acknowledge is if they're soft pastern, and it doesn't really tell you the whole story about their hind leg structure.
No, I think you're dead on. I'm at Louisville here at the National Goat Show, ABGA show, and they've got the All-American Angus Futurity going on. So I stopped over there and watched some classes, and it's nothing new from being in the ring or whatever. But when I study in general, and this is going to get me in trouble, when I look at the show cattle in general, and today just happened to be Angus, when we make that hip so level, and I love a level hip, a long hip, all those things, when we take and make those straight lines like that and bring those pin bones all the way up, we've changed that entire hip structure. And when we stop seeing that flexibility, that reach you're talking about in that hock, when it just doesn't flex and you're just average in terms of your pasterns, maybe not too soft, not too straight, but go up higher when the hock doesn't flex and the hip's not moving right. They're almost waddling out of their upper hip just to move. This is something that's not, it's almost counterproductive to make that perfectly level hip. We're counterproductive to what I believe a skeletal function is in terms of ease of movement or effortless. I'm not saying we need to go out and select bad hip cattle, steep hip cattle, or anything like that. I just want to make the point that as we try to make things straight and level and what we envision in the show ring as being structurally correct, we probably are not selecting for things that move as easy and effortlessly as we'd like. So those that can do it are kind of anomalies, and it's hard. I think we keep going in circles trying to get that, and we may hit it once in a while, and then we fall back off it. But it's hard to make these cattle super flexible and right in that hip and hind leg. And Blaine, you alluded to it earlier. We've got a very narrow base. It's not just in the steer thing. Go into the Angus cattle ring, go into any ring, and because of exactly what you said, our available genetics to make change or to make a more flexible hip and hind leg, those things or anything, there's just not a lot. We don't have those choices we used to grab and put together different pieces.
So before we move on to something else, I've got to give my little rant on this whole squishy pastern bullshit. So anyway, there is something different in terms of being flexible in your pastern, stable, secure in your pastern, and being squishy. Squishy means you're weak pastern, and the reason an animal is weak pastern, and I think Blaine will probably agree with me on this, because I think this is what he was alluding to earlier. When you are too straight in your hock, you have to compensate for it. And how that compensation happens is you get broke, weak, or squishy in your pastern. It is not a good thing. Okay, I'm done. Next.
Hey, real quick, Ryan, and I think you can add some perspective to this, but one of the things that I think has happened too a little bit on the show steer side of things is that we really have two different targets right now. And that's as we talk about the southern market with slick shearing cattle versus the northern market. And obviously you can make the aesthetic look of a hind leg a lot different depending on whether there's a lot of hair there, and you can take one that's maybe got a little set to their hock and fit it correctly to where it looks really good on the stand and they've got a lot more athletic ability when they get out and move, versus a slick shearing steer that has to look good. Their posture to their hind leg has to look a certain way when they stand there, and they obviously don't have hair to affect any of that. Do you think that there's I know that we've tried to integrate both of those types of cattle, and it's actually become a way that we've used a little bit of genetic outcross from our breeding programs, utilizing what they've made work down south for slick shearing steers and trying to incorporate a little northern genetics with that, and vice versa. What's your thought process? Do you think that's a little bit where we got to the fact that we wanted them a little straighter in their hock and softer at the ground so we can make those slick shearing steers athletic and still have a leg that's, stamps down in the ground and looks right from the side?
I'm just being in, again, when I talk about things down here in Texas major shows and the quality, all this stuff, a lot of people just say that I'm just being a Texas blue blood and all this stuff. That's really not it. I'm telling you from watching the shows, because we slick sheared, and I am not a proponent of slick shearing anything, but we have had to make everything so much better because it's just like you said, there is nothing that you can hide. There's nothing. Everything has had to be so much better. When I travel out through the country judging, or when I go to haired major steer shows, it is really takes me aback because by and large, I know that there's a lot more numbers in the Texas major shows than the other ones that have hair, but even at Fort Worth, that is a haired show. Overall, I think the animals are, I'm not saying they're superior, but they're better structured because we've had to make them better down here, because at all but one show, we don't have any hair to fit and hide the angle of the hock or, the fluid that's built up there, or any of those things. So I think that there is a point in that, but I do think, and again, it's more from a perspective of being a judge that goes to probably half the states every single year. I think that there is something in this deal that says, you know what? He's going to be hairy and I can clip it to where it looks different. And 90% of the judges aren't going to catch it, or they aren't going to say anything. So it's going to be fine. And that's just my honest opinion.
No, that makes sense. And Blaine, I like this topic a lot. And I mean, a lot of our listeners probably haven't had a chance to go down and look at the slick steers, but you'd mentioned that the squishy pastern or the softer pastern in the South, we may have to use to compensate that maybe they're a little straighter because we had to straighten that hind leg naturally to look right or look good for that backdrop picture. So I guess what I'm getting at, and maybe I'm way off base, but I want you to clarify for me. So when we are in the North, let's talk about hair steers here for a second. We can take one that's got a little more set to that hock, or maybe even a little more flexible because of the set to the hock, that if you took all the hair off, it's probably not going to look like that stereotypical hind leg that we want for the backdrop, but we can straighten that a little bit with hair and make it acceptable, and yet they stay sound. Where with the slick steered calves, we had to straighten the hind leg a little bit, and that caused more flexibility to the pastern, softened it. Can you explain that to me?
Well, that was kind of my question for Ryan, just a little bit. I mean, I don't want to allude that I think the steers in Texas are straight hind-legged, because I mean, I've been down there and I envy the fact that they've made those cattle so genuine. And part of it, I mean, as you look at those cattle, in my opinion, the more genuine they make them, there's some things that they can do down there when they slick them to make them look smoother and things like that, because they're so bulky when they have hair on them, the same calf sometimes can look a little coarser or whatever up in the North. So we've kind of made them a little more streamlined than what they are down there, if that makes sense. And because of that, we've taken away some of the genuine body shape and the genuine muscle, and we can get away with one being a little higher twisted because or not having as much lower quarter because we can carve that into them with hair, and we make excuses for these things to make them hairier and just kind of have an outline that we can make the rest of it come together. And when I say all these things, I'm not trying to stereotype either section of the world. I think what I'm trying to say is that in both areas, we've made some really neat pieces to these animals. And if there's a way we could figure out how to incorporate all of it and, utilize what we've learned with the slick shearing steers to make the haired cattle and genetics up north better, that'd be great. But I guess when I brought up the hind leg, I just think that, like you said, I mean, we can take one that's got a little more set to him and make him look straighter by putting fitting the hind leg where they don't have anything to hide. So they've got to make that hind leg athletic, but still when they stop, aesthetically pleasing where they don't have too much bend to it or something that takes away from their balance.
Excellent. I think that's a good description. So moving forward, Blaine, I'm going to keep going back since you already hit those top three things. As this conversation continues, and I think we're all three pretty set. I think the body type, just in general, I don't see it changing a great deal from here forward. The ones that are very elite and really good right now, we may make more of them, but I don't know that pendulum is going to change a lot. But I think, like Blaine alluded to earlier, if we already are pretty close to the body type on the very good ones, so we're there. Let's assume we're there and are going to stay there for a little while, and it's not going to change a lot. The one thing that we can consistently do, we can make a lot of them with that body type, and we talked about earlier, but we can't make them flexible and effortless through the ring where they're actually flexing in their joints and they look the part on the move. They look just as good on the move as they do set up. I perceive, and I could be wrong, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe not a big body type change, but hopefully, and this is going to be so difficult because our body type we want doesn't correlate to Mother Nature's flexibility very well. But we can do it just because it's proven. There's some out there that hit there, just not as many. We're going to make them more flexible. We're going to try to make them sounder and still keep all of those unique wow factor present features. And that's going to be hard.
Blaine, I have a question for you. And again, because you come at it from all standpoints, I at least think from not only judging, but from watching shows. And even though Dale says I should never watch them, I guess I'm a masochist. I watch them all the time. I believe personally that maybe back shape and topside power is either, whether you want to call it trending or having more emphasis than actual width in terms of hip and ass and those things. Do you think I'm off there? Do you think there's something to that? And I guess because I just hear more judges talk about that in their terminology and their reasoning more than I do the other.
Yeah, I would say that, and here again, I think it gets back to, you can go 3 shows in a row and think that something's really going that direction, and then you can show up somewhere else and people put different emphasis. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the fact that, we've made these things so good that you can kind of pick and choose where you want to put your emphasis on them, because big picture, I mean, you go to a show anymore or you sell a calf or raise a calf, whatever, that you think's pretty good, and you can show up there and not even be in the right hemisphere in terms of how good they've got to be. I mean, it's crazy how good we've made a lot of these. And because of that, we've become that much more critical on them. And I would argue that if we took one of these animals that wins a show now, or even one that maybe sits 4th or 5th in class, and take them back 5 years and show up at a show, they look like they daylight everything. And right now it's hard to create that separation. But to answer your question, I mean, I think back shape, part of that is with some of the genetics that have been available here lately. One of the things that I think that has been a focal point is body shape. And because of trying to figure out how to make their body shape better, I mean, it all starts with them coming out of the backside of their shoulder right. It starts with the spread up high to their rib cage. And because of that, we talk about their back shape a lot more because it's got to be right in order for their rib cage to follow. and have the right turn and, the right shape to their body and all those things to be right. So I'd agree with you, that it is something that's talked about more. And I would also add to that I think it's maybe because some of the other areas we're trying to make better are impacted by that.
And we talked a great deal, both in the pig and also in the sheep deal, in the trends. We didn't talk about it as much in the goat deal because I was just quizzing Dale and making him uncomfortable. But you talk about body shape things. And so I do think that we are at a point where the trend is that, you want them as round rib, whiskey barrel rib, whatever you want to call it, as we can. Do you think that in terms of what is winning, what is trending, what is all the things, do you think that we have lost or made depth of body and depth of flank maybe inferior to the actual shape of the rib?
I just think the two things are hard to get right together.
I agree.
Because as they're deeper, usually they're flatter. But
yes,
I think that, I don't know. I think that part of the reason we've really focused on their rib shape as well is to create the right kind of animal whose body length is the right length. They have to have the right kind of rib shape for us to feed them on to older ages. I mean, if we're trying to get that maturity to be able to grow these things slow, make them that much stouter, keep their athletic ability there. If their rib shape isn't right, their underlying balance is really hard to keep right. And if they don't have the right curvature to their rib shape coming out of their back, out of their forerib, the center part of their body, and you're trying to hold one or feed one slow, the first thing you do is you lose all their muscle shape, you lose all their body shape. And so we've had to make those things right in those areas. A deep-bodied, flat-ribbed one never looks very good when you've fed them slow because their chest is usually way deeper than their flank and things of that nature when they don't have the right body shape to make it all kind of correlate. So I don't know that we always set out and think about those things, that this is what we're trying to do to accomplish this specific task. But I think as we do that, we identify, hey, that animal right there held a little better, grew a little slower, whatever the case may be. And I'm not by any means trying to be a proponent that we need to make these things slower growing, because it's something that's frustrating when you're trying to sell them and you've got to buy them way older than what they are for somebody to make sure they make it there and have a project that's what it's supposed to be. But I mean, at the end of the day, some of the very elite ones are that. And so it's created us to, focus on that and identify those kind as being the ones that are, more expensive or harder to beat. So
I think you're dead on there, Blaine, and that answer that whether we want to make animals older in the show ring, and we've talked about maturity and everything that adds to it, and I think most people are aware of the advantages to it. But at the same time, like you're saying, it's you have to start with a certain body type, and especially rib shape, just as you described, to be able to go that far, to be able to go that long and keep the underlying balance, keep all those things. So I don't know if everybody's even conscious of it. Obviously, some people are, but because it's so competitive at the top end, that those are the ones. It takes that one with that rib shape. It takes that one with maybe that added age or maturity for a little more bone, a little more stoutness, all those things that come with it. Because everything we've done such a good job, just like you mentioned, but it's so hard to set yourself apart. It's those anomalies that have that rib shape that maybe are a little slower growing in the right home, feeding it for a show that's maybe a little further out there, and everything just happens to come together, and then there it is. That's the one that's going to rise to the top. It's a challenge in every species. So I can't even begin to compliment those people that are making those animals, those people that are managing them. It's just hard. But is there anything, Blaine, that you want to add that Ryan and I have not questioned you on, that you'd like to share with where are we? What's that ideal steer going to look like? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You talked about taking one of these, going back 5 years from now, just a nice class winner and probably being way above things. do you not think 5 years from now we could do the same and come back?
Let's face it, the majority of the people that are involved in this thrive on bettering things and competing and trying to get the edge up on the next guy. And we've got a tremendous amount of talent across species in these industries. And, one of the things that I think that we've done so well within our industry is, as we've added more shows and we've added more venues and this sport has become more popular, we have educated people to a way higher level. And there's a lot of people in our industry that's all they do anymore is travel around and educate people how to get them presented, how to get them fed, how to do these things. And then, it's no different than athletics. Now these kids have an opportunity, or these families have an opportunity every weekend to go out and perfect their game. And with that, I feel like, there's a premium for the expensive livestock that can go out and compete week in and week out. And I think that the breeders and the people that are involved in making these things are up to the challenge, and they're rewarded for making those outliers financially and through their accolades. And so there's no doubt in my mind that in 5 years we could be back on this podcast and say, man, remember when we thought they were that good? And I think a lot of that's just continuing to multiply the best ones and, get the female base better to where we can use these sires and make them that much better. And the people in the game elevate their game to where, not only do you have an animal that's extremely good, but you've got people that are so much better at presenting them. And so I think we're going to just continue to see it get stronger and stronger.
Blaine, I love listening to you talk about cattle, get inside your mind a little bit, and just some of those things that maybe others don't think about obviously comes into play, whether you're breeding, selecting, and greatly appreciate you sharing some of that knowledge with our listeners and enjoyed having you on the podcast. I would like to extend an invitation. I don't know that the question and answers are going to be as embarrassing for Ryan or as difficult, but you're welcome to stick around for question and answer. There may be some input that you could give there. And with that, Ryan, do you have any conclusions before we go into your favorite portion?
No, I really appreciate Blaine's insight. And again, I think that having someone like Blaine on here that, again, he's the show dad with the mostest. He raises them. He also, goes out, selects them to resell and all this other stuff. And for his own kids, I think his perspective is very unique because there is not many that tackle it from every single angle like that. And so I appreciate him being on here. I've known Blaine long time and respect his opinion so much. And I really do think that some of his insights that he gave out here this evening, which whenever you listen to this, who knows what time it will be, but very, very impactful, very true, and something to think about. And again, I really appreciate him being here.
It is time. Do you have a sponsor, Ryan?
Duh. Just because you're mad because my question and answer got a sponsor and now Chill Fresh H2O ain't the only one. No reason to be bitter. Bitter, bitter, bitter. Basic Animal Health is proud to be the question and answer sponsor for the Beyond the Ring podcast. Basic Animal Health is dedicated to providing natural solutions for your animal's needs. They offer 3 products: Gut Health, Show Focus, and Trailer Ride. They are constantly innovating and developing products that contain natural solutions for your animals. In the upcoming months, they will be releasing a wide variety of products to address all of your show animals' needs. And we greatly thank Basic Animal Health for not only sponsoring Dale's favorite part of the podcast and my least favorite part of the podcast, but the BTRJOA.
Excellent. And Joanne appreciates that. Joanne has our first question, and that allows her to ask this question. And I think we've already hit on this a little bit today, and I grabbed this question assuming it would relate. Love the podcast and listen every Friday. I have enjoyed all 3 of the trending episodes. My question is, do you think any of the species will get to a point that the ideal will stay the same and not continue to evolve?
I guess from my perspective, and we've talked about this in everything, that you have to constantly evolve. If you don't, then you lose what's good about things. I think of the 4 species, and again, y'all are going to say I'm partial. I think the ones that are the closest to the ideal and probably going to stay the most similar to where we are right now is cattle. That's just what I believe. And I don't see drastic swings in what we think is a great breeding heifer, a great market steer, changing a lot from where we are right now. Again, goats are still relatively new to the whole show world, and we have seen in recent years much more drastic swings in the pendulum of what made a great show hog and a great show sheep at this time. So, do I think it will ever we will say, this is it, and this is what it is, and it's not changing? No. And I think you have to change, you have to evolve to stay at the top of your game. So there's always going to be changes, and there's always going to be innovations and making better animals. But I think cattle is probably the closest of the 4.
No, I would agree with that. Blaine, you're as multi-species as anybody. Where are you at within each species, and how much? Where do you see more change coming, or maybe less?
Oh, I'd say that the hogs are always going to be the ones that change the most because they can change them the fastest. But I think that we're at a point in our industry where we're not going to see drastic changes. We're going to see variations, and as we put emphasis on trying to make them better in a certain area, we'll see the change there a little bit, or whether we want them prettier or burlier or whatever the case may be. But I would say that all of them have gotten to where we've gotten these animals so good, not only from like a form and function standpoint, but to combine that with the show ring look and presence and all the things that it brings, that in my opinion, I can't see how we could get that much different than where we are now. Just different shades of what we think is fun to try to make them better at. So
I would agree with that. And I always fall back to hopefully we can make them more flexible in their skeletons across species, but I'm way out there on that. I think, Blaine, you hit on it earlier too, that I don't know that we're going to make, and I agree, I don't know that we're going to make that drastic change in that body type, some little tweaks here and there. What I think will happen is we'll see even more that fit right into to that elite level. And it just seems to continue. And I can't imagine how competitive things will be 5 years from now, comparing it to where it was now or is now versus 5 years ago. It's a battle, and it's amazing the improvements that can be made. The next question comes from Mav. The trending episodes are the best, but I also love the Beyond the Circus. How can I convince you to do more of them? Ryan, that's all you. I want to do one every week.
Dill, if it was your freaking thing, that's all we would have. This is a livestock show podcast, people.
I'd like to do a China podcast.
The Beyond the Circus. Okay, then go talk to Joe Rogan. Okay, go get on his thing. This is livestock show. We do the Beyond the Circus for fun every once in a while. I am a busy, busy person. I will be home 3 days in June. 3. Clifton is a busy person. Dale, well, he thinks he's busy.
Okay, good enough. We won't even bring Blaine in on that one. We'll leave him alone there. The following question comes from Lisa. Love the podcast and waiting for you guys to start a YouTube channel. Is this going to happen? I don't even know what a YouTube channel is.
I think that they would, or what I am assuming this person is getting at, is they want us to video the podcast as we record it and upload that to YouTube.
So they could listen and watch, but there's not a lot.
Yes, it would be not only multiple sensory experience.
And you'd have to do your hair and makeup it'd be a challenge.
I am out. I'm
in a hotel
all
room.
Of it.
You're
because
in a hotel room,
if
right?
I am always in a hotel room, and if y'all saw my reaction to some of the things that Dale said, well,
That could
Clifton
add a
knows because I
lot.
text him. It would be bad. Dale would not speak. Dale does good to speak to me on a daily basis as is. He would no longer speak to me. Y'all do not want this. It will be the end.
I just don't know enough about it. I'm sure Clifton could put it all together, but we don't even have good enough Wi-Fi to watch each other while this is going on. We're just on audio. So it will be hard. I'm not saying it's something that's impossible, but I'm not very familiar in that area. With that said, I greatly appreciate it again, Blaine. Ryan, thank you for jumping on. We're recording a little bit late this evening, but it worked out really well. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?